Okay, 225. This exercise is looking specifically at topography inside of Revit 2012. And so what we're going to start with in this particular case is an underlay image on the site plan view of a specific site. So I'm going to navigate first to my site plan view. And this time I'm going to start by going Insert. We're going to insert an image. And I have this image saved on my desktop. It's called Site, and I'm going to place that image into the actual site. Now I know that this specific site is right at 100 feet from edge to edge. So to scale this, if I come in here with the measuring tool and actually measure across this right now, my actual measurement is 84 feet 9 and 125/256 of an inch. And I want to adjust that so that it is exactly 100 feet across. So to do that, I'm going to go to my Annotate Detail Align tool, and I'm going to start align at this edge, align at the existing edge, and then I'm also going to offset my top line 100 feet. So this is my actual distance that I currently have. This is the distance that I want from edge to edge here. So I'm going to select the image. I'm going to select the scale tool right here. And I'm going to select this is my base point, my existing measurement, my new measurement. And now I know that edge to edge is 100 feet. So the next thing that I need to do is launch my topography building tool. So I'm going to select Mask and Site, Topo Surface, and I'm going to switch my view to wireframe. I'm doing that so as I'm building up the site, I can actually see underneath the surface edges and not sort of have the entire view hidden by the JPEG image that's in the background. So again, I'm not going to use these absolute above sea elevation values. I actually want to use values that are associated with the building pad or entry level. And that's, I think it's going to be somewhere right around in here for my 0 mark. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a series of points along this topography line at elevation 0. Now again, it's important to remember that we're not actually drawing in topography lines. We're actually putting in points in space, and those points in space represent a height. So I'm going to go up 10 feet, and the next thing I'm going to do is put the same number of points, or close to the same number of points, right along this line. And again, I want to be accurate, but I'm not necessarily going to worry about being incredibly precise. So I'm going to go up another 10 feet and get this top corner. That. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go minus 10 right here for the measurement of 1270. And now I'm going to go to minus 20. And minus 30. This point right here I know is about halfway between these 2 points. So if I look at that point, that is minus 10. This point is minus 20. So what I'm going to add in is a minus 15 point. Place point. Did something wrong there. Minus 15. Oh, I believed I changed the number to minus 15. Again, it's really easy to go back and edit points. I had that point selected when I typed in minus 15, which was pretty boneheaded on my part. So let me just go ahead and select that point again, change that back to minus 20. There we go. That point looks a little bit too low. I know those contours should be going straight across. So with the minus 15, let me try that at minus 17. See if that doesn't look a little bit better. Yeah. Better, not great, but really certainly good enough for what we're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and click the green checkbox, and we're going to look at this in 3D and see that I've created a very steep site in this particular case. Those third year and fourth year students that have worked on the Breaking Camp project will tell you all about this site that we built for them. It's fairly horrific to try and do a building on. So what I want to do next is establish a building pad. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my site view. I'm going to select the building pad tool, and I'm going to use my basic lines to establish a building pad. Now the building pad right now is associated with level 1, and it is offset a height of 0 from level 1. So when I finish the building pad, you can see that it's actually building up that front edge, and it's digging in to that back edge a little bit. So let's say, for instance, that I really want that to be split more 50-50. That I really want the building pad to be sort of pushed down into this back edge, not be quite so tall on this front edge. So to do that, I have a couple of options. I could simply select my building pad elevation and just say, -4, and pull that down. Now the problem with that, though, if I'm going to associate this building pad with level 1, so let's go to an elevation and check that, then I'm going to have to offset everything in my entire building down by 4 feet, which if it's a complex building, or really even if it's not a complex building, it's going to get really annoying really, really fast. So let's look at another way of doing that. I'm going to go ahead and bring that back to 0. Typically what I would do in a situation like this is not move things associated with level 1. I would go to an elevation view. I would select my topography, and if I know I want to shift this by about 4 feet, I would simply move the topography. Now, it's going to move the building pad with it. So you can see the building pad actually raised. If I select the building pad now, you'll see that it's 4 feet. Really simply, all I have to do is set that back to 0, and now I have sort of a 50-50 split in terms of what is in and what is out. Okay, so the next thing that you'll notice is I really need some type of berm right back here to help water shed from one side to the other. So let's go back to my site view. Now, when you become an expert with the topography tools, I would suggest you use graded region, but until you're really comfortable with everything you're doing, let's just stick with editing the topography. Graded region is going to give you sort of a cut and fill demo kind of thing. It's going to create multiple topography files, which is great and incredibly useful, but can be really confusing while you're learning these tools. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to select Edit Topography, and I'm going to take these points, I know that those are sort of my low points, and I'm going to drag them to the outside of my building pad. And I need to add some points. I know this line right here is now approximately, well, let's see here. If this is 14 feet, I know that this is 13, 12, 11, 10 feet. So I need to add maybe some points that are in that 9 range right along here. So I'm going to do that by going to Modify, Place Point, 9 feet. And let's just add a few in right here. I'm actually going to just drag those down and get them really working sort of right on that edge. And now I'm going to place one more point at 10 feet, even higher, right about here. Now, I should come back in and do just a little bit more with that. So let's kind of make those just a little bit smoother. Let's add in maybe a couple of points at 12. Again, just to kind of smooth that out a bit. And let's add in one more at 13. I might need 2 more at 13 or 3. There we go. So I'm getting something like this working now, where I can actually see a berm that's being built up here just a little bit. And I can get the idea that water is actually going to shed this direction and this direction. So it's not great, but it's a good start. Let's look at that in 3D. And you can actually see how that's being built up now along that back edge. So from there, there's a few other things that we can do that are very important. I'm going to switch my 3D view to shaded. And you know, the default topography is dirt in its materiality. So let's just change that to a nice green grass. So I'm going to go to material. And then I'm going to change this to site grass. And I'm going to go to appearance, and if you haven't figured out by now, I really loathe the default grass texture. So we're going to click remove, and we're just going to use sort of a nice brownish, greenish color, something fairly light that's not going to be really obnoxious when it renders. So we're going to do something like that. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the bump map as well. And so we get sort of a nice base green color. But now I also want a path that, let's say, comes up to some edge right around in here. The best way to do that is with the subregion tool. So I'm going to go back to my site plan view. I'm going to select subregion. And this time I'm going to come from this edge over and down. I'm actually going to connect it right into this path that I know is already existing. So that's actually going to cut up the hill on the site and then tie into my building, something like that. Now I'm going to select a new material for this path. Materials, site, and let's make it a, well, I really don't want to make a site asphalt. I really don't want to make a site sand. So let's just go ahead and duplicate that material, and I'm going to call it site path. And for starters, I'm just going to go in and, again, I'm going to remove my image. I'm going to select more of a brownish color, less of a greenish color. I hope. There we go. Sort of a nice tan brown kind of color. I'm going to remove the bump map again for right now. This would be a great one to find sort of a wood chip pattern, something like that. I really don't have anything like that on my tool, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick with that right now. I'm going to say OK, accept that. So now you can see in my plan view, I can see exactly where those lines were. If I change this to shaded, you can actually see the difference now in the materials. If I select that path, I've got my site path selected. I can edit its boundary. And if I go to my 3D view, I can see that as well. So this is a great way to come in and begin isolating different components and creating different materials. The next thing that we can do is add in some site elements. So I've got a whole list of trees that I can go through. So let's add in a couple of maples. And you know, I like the maple a lot, but maybe I want one that's more like 40 feet. So I would say duplicate red maple 40, change its height to 40 feet and say OK. Put in 1, 2 more, and then let's also put in a blueberry. Sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. Olivia's been singing the Madame Blueberry song lately a lot, so blueberry trees seems good. Alright, so that's enough for those. If I go to my site plan view, you'll notice that it's actually using more of a traditional tree symbol. If I go to an elevation view, you'll notice I get an outline of trees. Sometimes those are not the best looking trees for an elevation view. You know, so if I have those in shaded, a lot of times if I'm going to output an elevation view, I might want to come in and say hide in view category, and that will hide all the trees. To get them back, I can click on the reveal hidden elements, right click, unhide in view category, and then click the light bulb again. So the last thing to talk about with sites is the idea of splitting a surface up. Now again, this is kind of the point of no return, so you want to be careful using it. There's no real great way to undo this. But if I select split surface, I can then select my site, and then I can begin drawing a shape. Like let's say we wanted a real serious retaining wall right here, and I needed to carve out a portion of my site. I could do a shape kind of like that, select it. You'll notice that it's going to make a cut mark wherever that was. Now that is a brand new, different piece of topography that I can actually delete out of that. Okay, So at this point now, I can do something that I wouldn't be able to do with my topography otherwise, and that is create a drastic break from edge to edge. If I just type in this edge, I put in all of these at height 20 and all of these at height 0, what I'm going to get is a really, really steep hill. If I come in and edit this now, and let's say that we wanted to make all of these, so this is 15, this is just over 1, let's call that 1 foot. So I'm going to select all of those points right there and put them in at 1 foot. Both of these at 1 foot. This guy also at 1 foot. And last, oh, those are both already at 1 foot. Yeah, so I get a much different kind of slope right here. I need to add in one more point, it looks like 1 foot, sort of along this edge. So let's do something about like that, so that that really reads well as a flat area. So now I have this really drastic cut right there in that location, and that allows me the opportunity to come in. I need to add a little more definition to that, it looks like. 1 foot. Let's add in this guy right here. Oh, you know, I actually moved a point around, so I need to sort of bring that over. I actually drug a point in place where I shouldn't have. That was that point that I moved down right there. So just sort of moved another point over. Now I can add in, that is once I finish my topo surface, I could come and add in a really thick wall, like let's say a foundational 12-inch wall. Even that wall's not going to be quite big enough, but I can add in something like that, and I'm going to make those walls tall enough to sort of start looking and acting like a retaining wall. Base offset of 0, height of 20. Oh, you know, I probably shouldn't have used foundation wall as a wall type. I should have used that piece. Base offset of 0. Well, I've really just made a mess of things. Let's delete that and try one more time. Wall. I'm not going to use a foundation wall this time because its defaults are weird. There we go. So you can see I'm starting to actually get something that looks like a retaining wall now. Last thing I might do with something like this is say edit its profile. To get that kind of effect. And again, oh, running out of battery. That's fine. Almost done anyway. So that's how you can start building a retaining wall with this really drastic cut. That's all that we really have for topography right now. Again, if you have questions, dbeach01@drury.edu.